Alrighty, chat. Yo, y'all can hear me though? Alrighty, just wanted to ensure that the mic audio is clear overall, because sometimes it will glitch overall. But anyway, chat, yo, what's good, chat? How y'all feeling today? I'm feeling blessed. Back with more of me playing GTA 5 Story Mode, man. There's certain things to chat about. Um, well, okay, so earlier, or before, you know how I've been looking at myself, like, in terms of my voice change, or like, my facial look to whether I aged or not, which, y'all know I never age, real shit. Or how my hair is dead, or it's aging as well, getting old and just looking like crampy or whatever, however you would describe it overall, because it's gonna take quite a while for me to process it. Like, you see, I know how, well, I wouldn't say no, because I know exactly everything, check, because I have exactly 500 IQ, and know exactly everything, and it's equal to exactly infinite IQ, which is a gift of knowledge from God Almighty Jesus Christ, obviously, chat. No, I am saying, like, I could process it immediately in terms of recognizing everybody's face, but when it comes to, like, differing, like, what I look like from before and now, I think I still look the same, but it's gonna take quite a while for me, or a very long while. No, actually, quite a while for me to process it, and I'm, like, quite curious, you know. But anyway, chat, without further ado, let's get straight to the shit, chat. Apparently, as I was just roaming around while I was talking to my homie earlier or whatever, apparently I was near that question mark where it says stranger freaks, which just call them freaks. Well, depending on what they do, because we're not unknown. Chat, stranger, the term stranger or the definition of it or the meaning of it, all synonyms. Terms, meaning, reference, definition. But anyway, it means unknown, stranger. Like, they're both synonyms. You're a stranger. You're unknown. Like, that's what it means. Like, come on, that's fucked up. And they say don't talk to strangers. It's another way of saying don't talk to those who are demonic. Okay, so you assume that everybody's like that? No. Majority of people sin. Whether they're a sinner, well, obviously. Whether they're less sanctified, whether they're lowly sanctified, and whether they're, well, highly sanctified. I mean, they sin less, but not as much compared to those less and lowly. But the worst of all, sinners. But those who are virtues, not a sinner, like they are without sin and they are without mistakes. You know? Because people say we all make mistakes. Absolutely not. Majority of society, whether they're a sinner themselves, whether they're less or lowly or highly sanctified, uh, it depending on how it depends on how less of the sins they have committed, like how much sin they commit overall, depending on whether they're less, lowly, or highly sanctified. And lowly is between less and high. That's why I mean lowly, like a bit lower than high, like highly, you know. But virtues like me or certain people, which is rare to witness someone who's a virtue, they are without sin and they are without mistakes. Which, just imagine witnessing someone like that, you know. Like, it may seem like for me that I may sin or make a mistake, but not necessarily. That's just my rare specific type of mental trauma, which is very rare and very temporarily. And I don't necessarily have any mental disabilities, but a rare specific type of mental trauma, which is very, very, very temporarily, you know? But overall, yeah, my bad, chat. I was thinking about something personal. But overall, chat, yeah, like, I don't necessarily have any mental disabilities, but a rare specific type of mental trauma, which is very, very, very temporarily, chat, you know? But yeah, you remember how anxious and stressed I was yesterday? And I would possibly say a bit of last night. Actually, no. Like midnight? No, yeah, it was all yesterday. You remember that, chat? Now I'm a bit calmer, or quite calmer, you know? Like, even though anxiety and stress can interfere every day within my life, but overall, it's all good. I manage it depending on the certainty overall. But anyway, chat, without further ado, let's get straight to this shit. This guy, let's see what he could possibly do for me. And I'm not at the beginning of it because, like, I went to the part, I'm like, okay, let me pause it because I'm going to stream it because I don't want you all to miss it. Anyway, chat. Without further ado, let's go straight to the shit. And you may recognize this guy as well, for those who have recognized him or played this game. Like, I can recognize him, obviously.
In a public place. It's very effective. I'm prepared to be a martyr, friend. Are you?
Shit, if being a martyr means to smoke good weed, for sure.
Would you like a little warm
Franklin, don't get
before you go
get
and
it
collect
twisted.
the supplies?
That's not what a martyr
Before I
means.
what?
Get the supplies. Can't have a smoke.
Yeah, smoking weed is great, which is a temporarily plant. Well, herbs are actually righteous, but what people use for it in terms of medicine to soothe or reduce the stress and anxiety. Don't be an addict though. Be aware. Don't rely on it to manage it, because I manage it through mental and spiritual growth, obviously. Not physical, because physically is just a development overall, which unfortunately we have to, like, all of us unfortunately have to temporarily physically be an adolescent slash adult, which they're synonyms, within our mortal body. Like, it's unfortunate, but hey, it feels like I am still a kid at heart, meaning within my soul, because the soul is me, obviously, genuinely me, who I am genuinely. The soul, a.k.a. is a glorified body, chat, it's me. Like, I'm gonna go back to what I'm meant to be. God of my Jesus Christ, though, he is 5'8", like my height actually, which is cool. But that is God of my Jesus Christ. He's divine. That's different. And he looks young and looks exactly like us, just at that height because of how divine he is. Lucifer, though, who knows? I mean, you know him. He's a sinner. Well, obviously, because he is the originator of sin, not Adam and Eve. you know. Yo, what's good, Jesse? How you feeling, brother? Hope you're feeling blessed overall. But yeah, you can tell this guy is old. That guy with the glasses. Man, I don't like aging. Like, I mean, I'm not aging, but I don't like when people age. It's sad, Like, Franklin's in his 20s, so I can differ the aging from Franklin to this guy, whatever it is. Well, it's gonna take quite a while for me to process his name. That's what I'm referring to. I won't necessarily be like, oh, whatever his name is. Like, come on, man. Don't be like that, Chad. Don't be like, oh, whatever their person is. I mean, sometimes I'm like, whatever or whatever. But that's in terms of when I'm anxious and stressed, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna take quite a while for me to process it. But with anxiety and stress interfering, which anxiety and stress are not synonyms, they're similar, and they can go back to back overall when they combine, which is unfortunate and sad. Like, it saddens you, and it makes you depressed. Cause I, like, sometimes get depressed, like, when I look at myself, I'm like, oh, am I aging? Or is it just oil on my face? Or just my skull fully developed? Meaning it doesn't have to go beyond constant. When I reach, like, age 20? Yeah, age 20. But you know what? I look at myself, I look at my hair, I'm like, it looks exactly the same. Hope I don't lose hair. Man, because I don't have anybody genes. It's like I look like God of my Jesus Christ, but at the same time, I have a bit of similarity of who I look like, so God's like, why don't you join this family? This is temporarily, though. It's a temporarily family. The true family of all is all as in one, meaning all through God of my Jesus Christ, because we are made in his image. But anyway, without further ado, let's get straight to the shit. But yeah, man, this guy with the glasses is aging, though.
In without smoke.
And Franklin, wow.
Cerebral stuff that's gonna get the people up off their feet protesting.
But a bit younger.
Man, I don't know. It sounds kind of bullshit to me.
We're gonna crush them with our resolve. Here. Have a little taste of that.
Oh shit, it's this part. Damn, why?
Mellow, sophisticated high.
Man, it seems a little dry.
Can't you see the aliens?
Man, what else are you taking? Man, this shit is garbage.
Jeez. This guy is putting stuff into it. That is actually a sin, buddy.
Anyway, just get the stuff. It's a revolution, and then call me.
Crazy motherfucker.
Hey, should I kill him?
San Andreas needs you. I'll text you where the stuff is. Hey, go quick before someone sees you. And look out for the cops. And the monsters. They're everywhere.
Whoa! Oh, my bad, buddy. Barry was de loca. And his name's Barry. My bad.
Needs you. I'll text you where the stuff is. Hey, go quick before someone sees you.
You mean check?
And look out for the cops.
Oh! He looks high. Okay, I'm going far. Then I'm gonna go back and kill him. There you go, watch it. Watch it, I'm gonna go back, watch. Yeah, his name is Barry, yeah, that's the guy. Old ass motherfucker. No wonder you aged, because God cursed you. He punished you, you sinner.
Excuse me? Sorry, didn't mean to create such a shitstorm.
This sucker go again.
Oh my gosh, why is he sitting down? Okay, anyway, back to the mission I can consider doing. Actually, let's consider being Michael. Because there is a mission specifically for him overall. Most likely.
They don't make them like they used to.
Didn't make what like they used to, brother? Oh, the copies. Because he was dropping that coffee cup. And I wasn't even paying attention, I was actually looking at my phone. That's why I wasn't talking. Damn, look at those tattoos. I want to get all that tattoos. Oh, he's not even full sleeve, hold up. That is a badass car.
Hey there, Brad.
I would love to drive in one like that. It's not crashing. We gotta make this baby. No! Oh my gosh. Okay, that was a scratch. Okay, it's fine. For me, it wouldn't necessarily matter, but I'll be driving professionally. Trust me. Give me chat. Yeah, I don't necessarily like when you wealthy chat. Like how. I mean, it's great to be wealthy. Like, it's a gift from God Almighty Jesus Christ. We're meant to be rich. God doesn't want us to be poor. People can hate being poor, but love the poor. Just imagine that, chat. I can even mention AZ. Is it a sin when someone mentions, oh, I hate being poor, but love the poor? It means you just love people overall. Yes, you can say, you shouldn't be poor. And people, and the Bible is clear, the Holy Bible is clear to not be in poverty. Like, it's a sin when you're a sloth, because you're just being lazy, not wanting to get the money. But if it's simply because of those who are greedy, then don't judge them. Like, you'll never know the story. But if they lost a job, isn't that considered lazy? Well, there's certain times, yes, they're not looking for other jobs, and but you don't know why. They could be having PTSD, or have some certain type of fear, or the person itself is greedy and letting them remain in poverty, you know. That is fucked up, you know. So what Michael had to do is sacrificial. He took it from other thieves, the money, or like he took certain things from them to give to the people, but he doesn't steal money. He gives it back to those people. And overall, you gotta realize that he's not actually a thief. He was, because he had a sad in life, and that is why he sees a psychologist. But overall, he's not necessarily helping. That's why if you want to see a therapist, see someone that's trustworthy and godly, meaning they're righteous overall.
Here for a tramp stamp?
Absolutely, buddy. Why you... What you did to your hair, bro? Holy shit, buddy. Man, I can see the wrinkles on her face. Well, I gotta take the hair off that body. Oh my gosh, Michael. Alright, so we gotta cover... Well...
Guy before you had a naked picture of his mom done on his arm. Hope you like that. Tell your friends where you got that. You know, you're not much of a bleeder. That's a good one.
But anyway, so not necessarily real because it's not like he's doing shit. You know? Right, a left arm.
A teardrop by the eye. Make you look hard.
In terms of that, what are you referring to, buddy?
Yeah, you should let me tap that, baby.
I specialize in neck tattoos. Real classy. I'm using this money for drugs.
Depending on the certainty.
I just finished a dragon tattoo on a dude's back.
Don't you all love tattoo chat? Oh, that is fucked. Skull and that. Someone get that. I wouldn't even mention anything. Actually, I possibly could. Who knows? For certain reasons. Actually, I wouldn't. Chat. I have options overall, you know. Alrighty. Consider doing the mission, you know. But yeah, I don't necessarily like yeah, when you're wealthy, yeah, overall, yeah, back to that part. Yeah, don't necessarily like be like, oh, don't scratch my car, don't step in my shoes. Do you know how much this costs? Like, that is messed up. That is the definition of greed. Just like the term pedo / pervert.
Shit!
Oops. I was gonna say, I didn't even freaking.
You know how much this car costs?
Oh, see? See what Michael's doing? Come on, Michael, don't do that. But at the same time, I've already mentioned the story, but overall, don't be like that, you know? But he took money from others. He other thieves. So from the thieves. He's a like Robin Hood, meaning he's a great guy. No, don't come here, don't come here. And then like yeah, he gives it to Lester or whatever, and then he gets paid by them. So, but in real life, be aware. Like you can't necessarily be a thief. You gotta be like Michael, just in a good way. But yeah, people can sometimes be judgmental for these characters within PT. There's certain people who are judgmental overall, chat, you know. But yeah, overall, yeah, don't be like that. Like, yeah, pedo slash pervert, which they're synonyms, is the whole definition of the word sex offender, or someone lustful, like lusting, like lust. Choosing sex over love, it's messed up. Like, yeah, I don't necessarily like it where the age requirement is 18 plus, in terms of the earthly slash satanic laws slash commandments, which is temporarily can change over time. And what I mean by earthly or satanic, meaning it's through Satan, not through God Almighty Jesus Christ, and it's temporally, it's earthly, like it's within this fallen or sinful slash fallen version of this world, you know. Because they may think it's for protection, but there could have been a better way to situate the law through God Almighty Jesus Christ, like aligning with Him, you know. But like I mentioned, I go with the flow of light, like through God Almighty Jesus Christ, divine light, in terms of being obedient towards that. Once they change it, in terms of lowering it, or even better yet, overall removing it, then that will possibly be like next decade or whatever. But that's when I'll be obedient towards that overall, you know. Which I would definitely obey is the removing part. But overall, I obey the current one that haven't necessarily changed yet, where it's 18 plus. But some states, it's 16 plus, so still within that age of temporarily, physically being an adolescent slash adult within our mortal body, you know. And I'm currently 20, meaning I'm like 2 years from 18. Like, what I mean by 18 plus, meaning above 18, or 16, meaning 16 plus, or close in age, which it's got to be all ages. Once they change is what I'm saying. I'm not saying at the very moment, you know, because some states allow that in terms of Romeo and Juliet, which is either 16 or close in age. So like 18 could be with someone 16, 20 could be with someone 16, like 19, 18, 17, 16. Close in age like that. But in this state is unfortunately 18 plus. But hey, we gotta be obedient towards it, you know, because I'm sure my kid will be like Stardust, when I'm gonna adopt during this current generation and how this current law is. She'll be like, oh, I want to do it, and I'm like, I know you want to do with your hubby, aka husband, through God Almighty Jesus Christ, which the wedding is currently 18, but I'm saying like overall through God Almighty Jesus Christ in terms of marriage, which is the marriage in terms of long-term love and commitment. Like, you've showed this deep love, you have a crush and all that. But anyway, she'll be like, I'll be like, I know. I mean, you know how people are, they're gonna do it privately, like at home without the cops involved and all that, but I'll be like, I know, but you know how this current law is and how it is, unfortunately, within this sinful slash fallen version of this world, you know. So yeah, it's 18 plus, like, and in Romeo and Juliet 16 plus or close in age. Like, if someone's 8 and another person's 9, or if they're both the same age, it could be same age as well. Then they can do it privately or whatever. But that is like in other states, certain states. But if in this state it's 18 plus or 16 plus. So if there's Romeo and Juliet, or there's 18 plus. Unless it's just 18 plus, who knows? Because I did research and it says 18 plus for that. But overall, chat, gotta be aware, chat. Like, in terms of people lusting, but that's not the whole point why they chose the age. Who knows? They assume or think it's for protection or safety of younger individuals, or any individuals, but typically younger individuals overall, you may think it's for the safety or protecting them. Yes, they've been exploited, taken advantage by someone who they think have more wisdom slash knowledge or higher IQ, whatever. But what if that kid have a higher IQ, but they have something emotionally damaging them, unfortunately, and they're like taking advantage? And because remember how I mentioned about my friend, and that person's like, what did I walk into when I was explaining about it? And you know how one, he didn't ask for permission, and that person was 16, and he's like in his 20s or 30s or whatever, who knows? No, he's like in his 30s or 20s. You know how you asked that person that permission, that girl? Well, he didn't ask her permission, that's one, meaning he's lusting. He was choosing sex over love because he wasn't thinking, because when you change girls like that, that's, unfortunately, you're not thinking like straight. You're just choosing sex over love. That's lust, which is a sin. But two, simply because of this current law, you get arrested. Well, either way, even if they remove the age requirement and it's for all ages, once they lower it or remove it completely in terms of it, in terms of the earthly slash satanic laws slash commandments, which is temporarily, can change over time, these type of laws that shouldn't necessarily align with Satan, but should most likely align with God Almighty Jesus Christ in terms of lowering the age requirement or removing it completely. Like you know how if it was lowered or removed completely overall, like, you know, well, if they like did that overall, you would still get arrested if you're exploiting or not asking for permission, like you're raping because you're forcing it onto that person. That's considered a sex offender. Like you're a pedo slash pervert. You're lusting. You're choosing sex over love. That's the definition and the whole definition of what a sex offender means, chat, or lust means, because that is what a pedo or a pervert is. Well, or pervert, because they're synonyms. That gives on to someone who lusts, choosing sex over love, which is considered a sex offender. You're forcing onto that person. Don't choose sex over love. Choose love over sex, and let sex be pleasurable, or just pleasure for love. But in terms of this current law, it's got to be according to just temporary law, 18 plus. Just because they think it's for safety reasons, but what I know is, well, arrogance. Like, they think that they're better to the U.S. government, which obviously YouTube is going to keep it private of what I specifically mentioned about them. Even if I don't mention to YouTube to keep this private, they would, you know, keep it private of what I specifically mentioned about YouTube overall. Or not YouTube, the U.S. government overall. But it's temporarily, Chad. Who knows? You know? It could be for safety reasons, or it could be in terms of arrogance, thinking that they're better and they can make it age higher than that age. Like, anybody under that shouldn't do that, you know. Which I feel that to make it safer and to protect younger individuals, just ensure that they're not exploiting or choosing sex over love, like they're not lusting or being a sex offender, you know. Instead of just making an age requirement, which, like I mentioned, chat, I'm gonna go with the flow of the light, you know, the light, like God Almighty Jesus Christ, divine light, and just be obedient towards that current law, which is temporarily overall, chat, you know, in terms of these law, you know. But overall, if they did lower it and or remove it completely, if it's for all ages, never exploit anybody of all ages, you know, especially kids, those that are temporarily physically a kid within their mortal body, because you know how Satan is, he would make them immature even though they're not necessarily. We're all mentally mature despite our age and our human stage that is temporarily, unfortunately, within our mortal body, you know. But overall, don't exploit and don't choose sex over love. Like, ask for permission, you know. But yeah, he's in prison because of two things: lust, sex over love. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be a sex offender, which unfortunately he is. And two, the current law. You gotta be aware, you know, of which state you're within. If it's 16 plus, then you wouldn't be in prison. But considering the fact you chose sex over love, either way, you would be in prison, you know. Despite it being 16 plus or not, or just overall, if the age requirement was lowered or removed completely. Despite that, you broke God command, so you chose sex over love, which is lust, which is the true meaning of what a sex offender is in terms of being a pedo or pervert, which are synonyms, obviously. Like, you chose that path. So, they have to align with God Almighty Jesus Christ. But the current law, which is through Satan, though, in terms of the age requirement, which they assume that's how you protect them to keep it safe and for their well-being overall. Well, overall is to just not exploit or, you know, overall choose sex over love, you know, in terms of what lust is and what it means to be a sex offender, which you shouldn't necessarily be that. But overall, you know, yes, it's like, you know, the age requirement is within that, which that is through Satan because you're being arrogant, thinking like, oh, those that age do that, where during the ancient era, it was all ages, without as much of exploiting or choosing sex over love. Even though there was certain times where people were lustful, choosing sex over love, and exploiting them and all that, and being a sex offender overall, which pedo or pervert is a modern word, which they're synonyms of what it means to be a sex offender, which is the whole point of what the true meaning of this term sex offender is, or lust, which means choosing sex over love, you know. But yeah, he didn't ask for permission when it comes to that 16-year-old girl when that guy is in his 20s or 30s or whatever, you know, overall. Yes, it take quite a while for me to process of what his age is, but overall, yeah, you shouldn't do that. That doesn't necessarily align with God, my Jesus Christ, for what you're doing to lust. But the law should align with God, my Jesus Christ, to ensure that nobody lust, you know. But simply because of this current law, which obviously it's temporarily, yeah, he got arrested, chat. He got sentenced to 15 years to prison. I'm not gonna mention who, but it's unfortunate. But that's all I gotta mention again, chat. In terms of it, chat, like overall what I'm mentioning, like I just want to talk about it again because I was talking a bit quiet, and that guy was like, what did I walk into? Like, I had to ensure that everybody's aware of that, you know, because of this modern world and, you know, how this sinful / fallen world is, unfortunately, simply because of sin, you know. So, if my daughter do it in private, I mean, who knows? But overall, I'm just gonna say be aware or don't do it at all until that law, that temporary law changes. You know, that earthly / satanic law / commandment, which, you know, law and commandment, like / commandment or commandment are synonyms. Yeah, which is temporary and can change over time. And I mentioned it changes over time overall. And once that changes over time, whether they lower it or remove it completely, then she has the free will to decide whether she wants to do it immediately or not. It's her free will, Chad. And I gotta respect that. But in terms of this current law, and I'm gonna adopt her this year, who knows? I'm just gonna say be aware or do it in private. Or be aware and don't do it at all. Or just, like I mentioned, be aware. But I'm just gonna say don't do it at all and just be aware of predators, which is another word for pedo or pervert, which they're all synonyms. To ensure that she doesn't interfere with someone who's a sex offender, someone who's lustful, choosing sex over love, you know. I just want her to ensure that, you know, especially as an 8-year-old girl, which, regardless of the age, you know, she's going to be mentally mature, because I read her description on the adoption.com. But especially as an 8-year-old girl, you never know what Satan could possibly do. He could, like, make her immature and make her invulnerable and irresponsible, which she's not necessarily going to be immature. She's mentally mature. I read her description, and she is energetic, and she's aware of herself, despite her age of being 8 years old, or 9 years old, if they haven't changed her age on her adoption.com description, you know. But I'm going to be the father to her, you know, adoptive father, meaning I'm not, like, relatively close looking alike, you know, but overall I'm going to love her, and I'm going to protect her, so I'm going to say don't do it until you're, like, 16 or 18, depending on the law. Well, we're actually going to be in Los Angeles, California, and, well, Miami, Florida next year, so I'm going to say, if they say 16, wait until you're 16. But depending on the area, if they have close in age, then I'll be like, hey, You could do it if your guy is like 9 years old, then do it somewhere privately. Which I'm sure that's what it means. But if it says 16 plus or 18 plus, wait until those ages. You know, I want her to be aware. I'm gonna say don't do it unless they have that close age thing, or which is another norm of, or you know, Romeo and Juliet. And I'm gonna mention to her, as don't do it at all. Be aware, and if it's with your hubby who's close in age, then if it's close in age law, they might as well. Which is earthly / satanic. It doesn't align with Satan because God Almighty Jesus Christ wants all ages, but you know how this modern world is and how they regulate these things, which is temporarily. You know, it's like a temporary law. Figuring out things, whether it's for safety or for the well-being or arrogance. But overall, I say it wouldn't necessarily be for safety or well-being of others. It could possibly be in terms of arrogance of the U.S. government, chat. Which overall, and yeah, YouTube is going to definitely keep private what I'm specifically mentioning towards them. And it's not necessarily an opinion, it's a fact. I can prove it as a fact. But just obey these current laws. Yes, they're temporarily, you know, they're temporarily and they can change over time. But overall, despite it aligning with Satan, and there should be a, like, the law, the commandment overall, regardless of whether you use the word law or commandment, because they're both synonyms. Well, they're synonyms, obviously, they're the same. Exact word, same meaning. But whether, if we want that to align with God by Jesus Christ, it should be for all ages, whether you know, lower that age requirement or remove it completely, and I'm sure it would be removed completely in, like, the next decade or the decade after, you know. But overall, like I mentioned, I go with the flow of the light, you know, God of my Jesus Christ, divine light, and I just obey these current laws. Just be obedient towards these, despite it being temporarily, and despite it aligning with Satan. You know? But, overall, the safety and well-being is to just not exploit and not take advantage, which is what exploiting means, and not to be a sex offender. Don't, like, lust and choose sex over love. That is still what the safety of our well-being is, what we're aware of and wanting to witness, you know. So don't be confused of what I'm mentioning, but that is just something I would change as a president. But if you all think like, hey, just be aware of what you assign, then just be aware, you know. What up, my mom's calling me, chat. Yeah. Anyway, I can made myself because, you know, you never know, but it's gonna take a while for me to process of, you know, whether she can see that or not. But anyway, it's all good. Just don't be that type of parent. I'm not gonna mention much because, you know. But anyway, chat. I have to whisper quite a bit, which I have a loud voice, but I'm not gonna make that an excuse. But overall, as I'm specifically referring to, just be aware, you know. Don't be a sex offender. Don't like lust, you know. Well, sex offender is associated with lust, so don't lust, don't choose sex over love, don't exploit someone if that changes, like whether they, you know, lower the age requirement or remove it completely, like I specifically mentioned. But overall, don't do it at all, despite the current law of this age requirement, or whether they lower it or remove it completely. Overall, just be aware, whether it's 16 plus or 18 plus or close in age, or once they potentially lower it or remove it completely, chat, in terms of that law, chat. Yeah, in terms of that law, chat, just, you know, be aware. Whether it's 18 plus, or 16 plus, or close in age, or once they potentially lower it or remove it completely, chat, just be aware, you know. Never exploit. Just don't be a sex offender, you know. Don't, you know, lust overall. Don't lust overall. Don't choose sex over love, you know. So yeah, that is my speech. I'm gonna see what I mentioned. I'm gonna go back to what I mentioned before that, you know. Oh, because when I was mentioning that word, okay. Overall. I'm sure I mentioned something about greed and all that, like don't necessarily be greedy, you know. But anyway, chat, without further ado, let's consider doing this mission, you know. Interesting speech. But yeah, once I'm a president, obviously I wouldn't let people be perverts or pedos, you know, just not necessarily letting people be a sex offender or, you know, lustful, because why would you want to choose sex over love, you know? And everybody would agree, like, yeah, I agree, we need people like you, not being lustful, which the whole meaning of all this is just not to be lustful and choose sex over love. That is the whole point of all these certain words that aligns with that deadly sin. Like, would you see me doing that with my kid? Absolutely not. You know, what's this current law? No. Especially when there's a chance it could lead you to rape, which I would never be a rapist. And I even mentioned that I'm not necessarily a sinner and I wouldn't necessarily make a mistake, but because I'm without sin and without mistake, but overall,
Meet me at the bar.
never, because like, why would you want to do that with your kid? Especially when she's 8. Yeah, don't. No, don't do that. Especially with the current law, you know. Especially with that. You know, like the current law, no. Like, it's 18 plus, and you just gotta go slow overall, like I've mentioned. And like, yeah, this who got up my Jesus Christ. He's like, just be obedient towards it, despite it being temporarily, you know, just go slow and be obedient towards it unless it changes, whether they lower the age requirement or remove it completely. And if they did potentially lower the age requirement or remove it completely, would I still do this with my kid? No, because as a father figure, never do it towards your kids. Yeah, you watch on pornography, they do, but it's not necessarily their actual kids. It's more like it's all an act. And if it is, then I'm sure simply because of the current law. So if that changes, once it lowers or is removed completely, who knows how that would go overall. But if it's for me overall, me individually, if it was like my biological kid and not my adopted one, once she's like temporarily physically an adolescent / adult within her mortal body, if it was like my biological kids and that were to change, like that law where they lower the age requirement or remove it completely from 18 plus or 16 plus or close in age to just all ages, meaning they lower it, or instead of lowering it from that age to that age and they just remove it completely for all ages, then definitely not gonna do it towards my biological kids either. You know, because what if they did it with someone who's a predator, if they're still gonna be predators during that time? Because yeah, predator is another word as well, which aligns with the word lust, which you choose sex over love, which is actually a synonym of pedo or pervert, you know, which is the whole meaning of what a sex offender is, which someone who's lustful and chooses sex over love, you know. But yeah, like, why would I want to? Because I did it towards my biological kids, and then they interact with a predator. Well, they won't think that's a predator if they don't know exactly everything. They just know majority of what they know or whatever gift of knowledge God Almighty Jesus Christ gave them as a gift. Like, if they interacted with that person, then they would be abused sexually. So I would never do it towards my kids. You know, never. Others are different, but I'm just gonna say don't do it at all towards your own kids, and just do it with your own spouse. You know, like overall, like your spouse that you interact with. You know, overall, like don't ever do it with your kids, especially me. I would never do it with my kids overall, despite them being younger or 16 plus or 18 plus anything like that. Like, even if they lower the age requirement or remove it completely in terms of that, I'm just saying, like, regardless of their age, I will never do with them. And I'm sure AZ would agree. He'd be like, I agree, man. Like, you shouldn't be lustful, which, actually, it isn't lustful. You're then choosing love, and you're doing it for pleasure, but in this situation, he would be like, yeah, I agree, man. You're not gonna be like that towards your children. That would be a bad influencer. That is the word you should look for. Bad influencer. You don't want to be like that. AZ would be like, I agree. You're not gonna necessarily be a bad influencer. And then others would, in my whole 491 subs, because I'm sure I'm not 92nd or, well, not 92nd in total, but like I'm saying, like I'm one of the subs because I check my stream, you know, and I support myself, and others support me. So others will be like, yeah, man, I agree. Why would you want to do that towards them? It's not ethical, regardless of the law changes or the current law, you know. Damn, yo, what's good, Jonathan? How you feeling, brother? I was gonna say if someone in the chat was mentioning like whatever I mentioned, you know. I mean, they may be confused because they didn't hear the whole story, but if I mention like, oh, don't do with your kids, they'll be like, yeah, I agree. It's not ethical. It's just unethical and just not reasonable, because then you're gonna teach them, and like you can teach them, and then like you can have the talk with them, but teaching them like that, yeah, absolutely not. It's bad influencing, and then if they interact with someone that they think is not a predator, but they actually are, that would not be great. Like, I would get in trouble, they would get in trouble. Well, actually they wouldn't, because it's not their fault. It would just be me and the predator that would get in trouble. Well, I would because of the bad influencing, and then the predator would because, well, because I let my kids interact with that predator, and then the cops will be like, Mike Bahri, you are under arrest for sexually harassing in terms of parenting, and that you have let your kids involve themselves with a predator. Like that, like, you can't do that, chat. Like me, never do with my kids. And I'm gonna mention to them, you can hang out with anybody of any age, just ensure they're not a predator or a lustful person overall that chooses sex over love. Be with someone, regardless of your age. Well, if that law changes where they lower the age requirement or remove it completely in terms of it. But overall, just be aware that it's not a predator. And I'm saying like during the next century, or not next century, the next decade or the decade after that. I'm not saying this current decade, you know. But overall, at this very moment, just go with the flow of God Almighty Jesus Christ divine light and just obey this current law despite it being temporarily, you know. Unless it changes, then you obey that overall, but considering the fact it didn't necessarily change, obey that, you know. But anyway, chat, without further ado, let's get straight to this shit. Yeah, it's great speech, you know. But I'm not saying do all this because of what I mentioned. I'm just saying be aware because of the current law. You gotta obey that, you know. But I'm saying once it changes in the future, then you'll see how that could possibly go. Who knows? If people do with their kids in the future, then it could be a different story. But at this moment, it could possibly lead to bad influencing. And I'm not saying I would be a bad influencer. I'm just saying, like, it would be considered because, like, they took it the wrong way. But overall, I would never be a bad influencer to my kids. But overall, I would never do that, you know? So people would be like, especially my subs would be like, yeah, man, I agree. Just obey this current law, despite it being temporarily, and just be aware. Be cautious, you know? Even Jonathan's like, I agree, man. Other people are gonna be judgmental, saying, what kind of speech are you giving overall? Like, no, you gotta listen and think of what I'm talking about. But yo, it's been quite a while since you joined my stream, Jonathan. How you feeling? Anyway, Chad, let's focus on the game. But it's great speech, so don't think that I would deny that. But overall, Chad, without further ado, let's get straight to the shit. But one advice I gotta mention, Never be a bad influencer to your kids. If they do that with their kids in the future, then that's different. You never know why. It could be because they're good influencers and their kids understand, and they won't necessarily interact with someone who is a predator. In fact, overall, but I'm just saying that's in the future. But as of currently at this moment, that's different. And because of the current law, I'm sure when it comes to pornography, that's like when they're of that age. In terms of this current law of this earthly slash satanic law slash commandment, which is temporarily can change over time, like I've mentioned, chat, according to certain biblical theories. But like, despite aligning with Satan overall, you know, and despite it being like 18 plus, which is the current law, which is temporarily, or 18 plus, 16 plus, or close in age, depending on the state. But overall, like, obey that current law. It's temporarily of that current law. Yeah, it's temporarily this current law, but so obey it. Excuse me, chat. Yo, take it easy, Johnson. You have to do something or something or whatever. Overall. But anyway, let's yeah, like I mentioned, obey this current law. So yeah, whoever see this, hope you all are aware, and if you have any thoughts, just be sure to let me know and how you can resolve this to ensure that there should not necessarily be any lust intentions whatsoever with anybody, regardless of their age. But of this current law, only 18 plus. Well, at this moment, I'm not saying like for eternity and indefinitely. That can change during the 2030s or 2040s, but who knows? Because people could say, because Google can even say, oh, it's unlikely, but that's like someone thought within Google, but the AI acts quite a bit like a human, but not very judgmental. But if it was a human thought, who knows what they would mention, But anyway, chat, without further ado, yeah, let's get straight to this shit, Gotta talk a bit quieter, Anyway. Just be aware and know what I'm referring to.
Hey, man.
Oh, before I continue, yeah, when it comes to pornography, people do it with their their kids, but that's because they're of that age. But I'm just saying if they're like younger, don't. But I'm saying if they do that with younger individuals in like the 2030s, 2040s, once that law changes where the age requirement is lowered or removed completely, but that's during those decade, not centuries, decade. But as of this current decade and this current law, we are obedient towards it. We go with the flow of the light, like God Almighty Jesus Christ, divine light, and we obey it. So anything under that, be aware. Don't be lustful, and don't do it with someone under that age. Is what I'm referring to. So nobody's like, oh my gosh, he's forcing people to do this. Like, no, it's not like that. I'm just saying, don't be lustful. That's one. Like, ask for permission. Don't choose sex over love. But as of this current law, don't do with someone of like under that age. Well, because of this current law, that's temporarily. Despite it being temporarily, I'm saying like with someone of that age, like don't choose sex over love. Like, don't lust. That's one. And two, don't like be aware that it's of that age. But once the age requirement is lowered or removed completely, then one, still don't lust because it's a deadly sin. It's a permanent sin from Satan. Well, not permanent, but it's gonna be the same overall. Don't choose sex over love. Don't lust. But then two, ask for permission of any age if it changes within a decade or two. But as of this current decade, the 2020s of 2025, like the mid-decade part of the decade, and as of this current law that's temporarily, despite them being arrogant, thinking, oh, it should be those above that age, you know. And it's temporarily, it could change over time to whether they'll change it, like lower it or remove it completely. So overall, don't lust, don't choose sex over love, and two, ask for permission with someone of the age is what I'm referring to. So if it's your kids, even if my kids are 18 plus of this, well, if Stardust is, which if you were, yeah, I would never do with her. Absolutely not, especially my biological kids. Once I have some. If it's pornography, that's different. Once that changes, but at this moment of time, in the future, no, absolutely not. Of like that future, no, absolutely not. I would never. But overall, yeah, I would never. And if it's all act on pornography, then just don't do it at all. But if not, if it's an act, but they allow their kids because like of this current law, and they're of that age, then do it. But once they lower the age requirement or remove it completely and it's for all ages, then that's different during that time, like it used to be during the ancient era. But overall, like I mentioned, as of currently, as of this current law, don't lust, don't choose sex over love, don't be a sex offender. Overall, yeah, don't lust, don't choose sex over love. And then two, ask for permission of someone of that age. When it comes to your kids who are of that age in the future or whatever, then that's different. That's everybody's different. For me, I would never, at this moment of time, during that part of the future. But anyway, enough with that talk. We've already chatted about it. Well, I've already chatted about it. But anyway, chat, without further ado, let's get straight to shit and just do this one mission. Then I'll consider playing Fortnite afterwards.
Fuck. What do you want?
I'm your friend. I don't want anything, man. Come on, your company's good enough, huh? Same as always.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that.
So, family ain't back yet, huh?
Nope.
Oh, she's a goddamn fool, man.
Despite all the chaos of these last few weeks, I think I finally figured it out. I know,
No?
sounds ridiculous.
No, actually, it does not sound ridiculous.
What exactly is this mission?
You're a killer. You are a man of action. You do not sit on couches, you take scores. You're back, man. We are back. All right? All we gotta go do is bust out Brad, and then we're golden, man. Franklin, he makes us multicultural. Shit. Lester makes it cyber. We're like modern America. We just get ourselves a gay friend. Bam!
No, it's not it. I got money. It just makes you miserable. I want to make movies.
Great. It's great. And, so where exactly does this leave me in the second act of your life?
We're gonna do this last big job.
Yeah, because he doesn't want others to think that he's actually a thief. They don't know his story of why he led himself to this. So he just wants to focus on movies, which I love it. Telling a story, making it go live, makes it seem realistic, but just a movie overall.
And then we're gonna dissolve the partnership.
Okay, I see you.
This is not a game to me. All right, this is a fucking way of life.
I got a fucking family.
Yeah, well, I got nothing. No one gives a fuck about me.
Oh, childhood trauma's triggering.
I do.
Which I have to respect him in. Respect him for who he is. I can't.
I saw your grave. I mourned you. And then it turns out that everything I fucking thought about you was wrong. Everything. You're not dead, and you're not a man.
Well, what the fuck are you?
I'm your fucking nightmare!
Yeah, enough with your goddamn threats!
Damn, what kind of friendship they have? Real shit.
Let me just ask you something. All right, something I've been thinking about. Up in North Yankton.
Oh.
Exactly who was buried in your place?
Oh shit.
I never gave it any thought.
You know what I'm thinking?
I had no clue.
You treacherous piece of shit! You're fucking dead. You're fucking dead!
All he knows.
Fuck. Trevor! Hey! T!
That's my car, you prick!
Fuck you!
Hey, come on, where you going?
You know where I'm going. Fuck you!
You don't need to go all the way to North Yankton to find out what I can tell you over a couple beers back at my house. Come on, we'll order pizza.
Fuck you! Fuck your pizza! Fuck everything it stands for!
This is insanity!
Damn.
Oh, no. No, it's clear and reason thought. Finally.
Stop your car, come on. Come back, we'll talk.
I'm not gonna listen to another one of your lies.
Hey, I'll lay it all out for you, everything. Just stop the car, turn around.
I'm going up there to see it for myself.
You'll be disappointed.
Oh, I'll be something.
It'll be an anticlimax. The grave's empty. Just a bag of sand, something like that. Just smoke and mirrors.
Oh, the lies! How do you do it, man? The game is up.
I'm trying to save you a trip.
You've done me enough favors, buddy, all right? Save your fucking breath.
Trevor, come on.
Fuck you, Michael. Soon enough, I will.
Ah, damn.
Shit.
I mean, Trevor... Apparently this childhood trauma is triggering. Whatever trauma he has, though. Could be childhood trauma. He could have multiple, who knows.
Special Agent Norton.
Shit. Davey. Shit, he knows. I think he knows.
What? Who?
Think.
Shit. Shit, how?
I don't know how. He used his head.
But does he know? Does he know at all?
Hey, he's on his way up to Ludendorff to confirm his suspicions.
Shit. Then what?
Then who fucking knows what? I don't know. I'm gonna go see if I can reason with him.
Well, I'd come, but I...
Yeah, don't worry about it. This is between me and him. Besides, if it goes wrong up there, I'm sure you ain't far down his list.
That's good to know.
His list? Ah, that is fucked up. Whoa, 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 whoa. Buddy.
Fuck.
It's like you just took driver ed and you didn't even know how to drive. Come on, man. Speaking of driver ed, Chad, like, certain people even mentioned to me, like, well, one person mentioned to me, they should ban driver license as well, but not, like, as a whole, but banning it, like, in terms of, like, where you shouldn't necessarily use a driver license, but use it for identification only. And in terms of driving, I feel that people can just drive by just learning how to drive a car.
Oh, you screwed up my car!
And taking a state test, and then you'll officially get your car. I feel like that's what they should consider doing, but that'd be in the next decade. If it was within this decade to change that law, that temporarily, because, you know, 16 plus to just drive and all that, or overall to have a license, like if they lower the age requirement and or remove it completely, or for all ages to drive, but depending on what age and how mentally mature you are, and how tall you enough, and how tall you are to consider driving, then that'll be different during that time. But if they do this during this decade, it wouldn't necessarily work in terms of how this government, U.S. government, would be arrogant, and other governments of other countries, well, depending on the country, you know. But you should only use that ID for identification, because that's what it stands for. That's the abbreviation for identification, you know. You didn't mean it, girl. But I think if you have a license, they'll think, oh, you're the driver. Like, what the fuck? Like, take a state test. They should give you a paper, like that you have proof that you've taken the state test and learn how to drive from a driving school, instead of just showing your ID. You can show your registration, but ID? Yeah, to show who you are and you're not someone pretending to be someone you're not. There should be like ID and registration, not license and registration. So if I was a cop, I'll be like ID, registration, and proof that you've completed driving school, like that. That's well, I could have a better line than that. It's gonna take a while for me to process it though. But yeah, they should have a line for that, you know. That's gonna have a talk with my homie, you know, because my homie Farhan would agree. But like this decade, if they were to lower the age requirement in terms of like for like sex and all that, like if they lower the age requirement or remove it completely, if it's for all ages, people are gonna be lusting. They would choose sex over love. That's one, and then two, they wouldn't necessarily ask for permission despite the age. But the age requirement is not necessarily for that. It's because they assume it's for the safety and well-being. But for the safety and well-being is to ensure nobody exploits, take advantage, and to like lust overall and choose sex over love, you know. And to not ask for permission, which is in terms of exploiting and just forcing your way, which is what lust is, you know. But for two, actually, that's one. For two, ask for permission overall, you know. But if they did it at during this decade, like, yeah, unfortunately, um, well, people would exploit and you know just lust and choose sex over love overall, and you know, unfortunately, and yeah, unfortunately, they will, and it has nothing to do with simply because they lowered it, but because they have to educate, like, oh, you shouldn't lust and choose sex over love, and you gotta ask for permission, you know. So that's what could possibly happen if they lower it. But that's not the whole point why we have this temporarily law in the first place, you know. That earthly slash satanic law slash commandment, which is temporarily, it can change over time, you know. But overall, like, despite the current law and it's temporarily, you know, it can change over time, you know, despite that, it's in terms of arrogance of them, but at the same time, you know, it's, yeah, overall, like, it's temporarily, you know, like, it has nothing to do with safety and well-being, but I feel that before they make that change, that's what they could possibly do is educate people to not lust and choose sex over love. But there could have been a certain way instead of just raising it. They could have just educated. But unfortunately, Satan had his ways, obviously, and manipulated or tempted him to just lust, choose sex over love, you know, and just like not ask for permission, you know. So overall, chat, you know. So yeah, just be aware, you know. But all I'm mentioning is like if they lower it, then it could lead to that because like the government would just be arrogant and just be like letting it all. But I feel like when you lower the age requirement of that and you know remove it completely, I feel that they should ensure that nobody lusts, like choose sex over love, which is one, and then two, like in terms of lust, and then two, like they should ask for permission of any age if they lower it or remove it completely, you know. Well, if they remove it completely for any age, you know. But as of this current law, despite the arrogance of the U.S. government or any government, but you know, overall the U.S. government, and despite them assuming that's for safety and well-being, which overall the safety and well-being is to ensure that nobody exploit, like take advantage, or you know, which is arrogant and lustful because you're choosing sex over love, and not necessarily ask for permission. Like despite that current law, which is temporarily, despite it being temporarily, like I feel like in terms of that, you should one not like exploit, like not ask for permission. Like in terms of that, like you shouldn't lust, you shouldn't choose sex over love. In terms of lust, like you should They shouldn't necessarily choose sex over love. That's for lust. And then two, you know, in terms of this current age requirement, you should, ensure that it's of that age to ask for permission and not exploit them, like not lusting and choosing sex over love. Yeah, that's all I gotta mention. But yeah, I know I've talked as much about like that because overall, yeah, I gotta be aware, you know. But anyway, I'll continue majority of that later today. But anyway, chat, I'm gonna end right here. If you want to see more of me playing GT, well, actually no, I can't end right here. I gotta let me finish the mission because I'm gonna end right here and then listen to music for quite a bit. Actually, no, hold on, I'm gonna do something for quite a bit and then I'll do the mission. Then I'll end it right here afterwards. Or you know what? Hold on, I'll do this mission next time. Like I'll end the cinema. Hold on, let me.
Hey man, where's the job site gonna be next? Oh, shit. It's been half my...
I'm gonna let the cops kill me and then I'll just end it and then. Okay. But yeah, anyway, chat, I'm gonna end it right here. If you want to see more of me playing GT5 story mode, be sure to leave the comment down below. Otherwise, I'm gonna end it right here. Take it easy, chat. But overall, of what I mentioned, just be aware, not necessarily be confused, and just hear it all, and you'll understand what I'm referring to. Despite me repeating certain of what I repeated, but overall, just to be aware. But what I'm mentioning is, don't do with someone under that age in terms of this current law. Even though the U.S. government is arrogant and you don't necessarily like how the law is, and it aligns with Satan, not necessarily aligning with God Almighty Jesus Christ. Overall, despite that law, they're ensuring that nobody exploits or lust into sex over love overall, and ensuring that they ask for permission. But as of currently, as for now, it's of that age that they're asking for permission for, and to just not exploit them, like taking advantage of them, which is arrogant for that person, and just lusting. You're choosing sex over love. So overall, just be aware. But overall, chat. Anyway, yeah, chat. Like I mentioned, yeah, I'm gonna end right here. Yeah, if you want to see more of me playing GT5 story mode, be sure to leave a comment down below. Otherwise, I'm gonna end right here. Take it easy, chat, and I'm gonna play with Fortnite whenever I get a chance with my homie AZ, and then just play a couple matches. Take it easy though. Hold on, let me save my game.